11. The Other Side of the Wall. When one lives in a row of houses, it is interesting to think of the things which are being done and said on the other side of the wall of the very rooms one is living in. Sarah was fond of amusing herself by trying to imagine the things hidden by the wall which divided the select seminary from the Indian gentleman's house. "I am growing quite fond of him," she said to Ermengarde. "I have adopted him for a friend. You can do that with people you never speak to at all. You can just watch them, and think about them and be sorry for them, until they seem almost like relations." She had become fond of the large family because they looked happy, but she had become fond of the Indian gentleman because he looked unhappy. He had evidently not fully recovered from some very severe illness. Sarah learned from the servants that he was not an Indian gentleman really, but an Englishman who had lived in India. He had met with great misfortunes and nearly lost his whole fortune. The shock had been so great that he had almost died of brain fever. His trouble had been connected with diamond mines. He felt as my papa felt, Sarah thought. He was ill as my papa was, but he did not die. So her heart was more drawn to him than before. When she was sent out at night, she could look into the warm room and see her adopted friend. Her sympathy was so strong that it seemed as if it must reach him somehow as he sat alone in his armchair by the fire, nearly always with his forehead resting in his hand as he gazed hopelessly into the fire. "He always seems as if he were thinking of something that hurts him now," she said to herself. "But he has got his money back, and he will get over his brain fever in time. I wonder if there is something else." The father of the large family went to see him often, and his wife and all the little children went too, though less often. He seemed particularly fond of the two elder little girls, the Janet and Nora, who had been so alarmed when their small brother Donald had given Sarah his sixpence. Janet and Nora were as fond of him as he was of them, and looked forward with the greatest pleasure to their well-behaved little visits to him. The Indian gentleman's real name was Mr. Carrisford, and Janet told Mr. Carrisford about the little girl who was not a beggar. He was very much interested, and all the more so when he heard from Ram Dass of the adventure of the monkey on the roof. Ram Dass made for him a very clear picture of the attic, of the bare floor and walls, the rusty, empty fireplace, and the hard, narrow bed. "Do you suppose," he said to the father of the large family, whose name was Carmichael, "do you think it is possible that the other child, the child I never cease thinking of, I believe, could possibly live in such condition as the poor little soul next door?" "If the child at Madame Pascal's school in Paris was the one you were in search of," answered Mr. Carmichael, "she would seem to be in the hands of people who can afford to take care of her. They adopted her because she had been the favorite companion of their little daughter who died. They had no other children, and Madame Pascal said that they were extremely well-to-do Russians." "But you say if the child was the one I am in search of. You say if. We are not sure. There was a difference in the name. Madame Pascal pronounced it Carew instead of Crew, but that might be merely a matter of pronunciation. The circumstances were curiously similar. An English officer in India had placed his motherless little girl at the school. He had died suddenly after losing his fortune." Mr. Carmichael paused a moment, as if a new thought had occurred to him. "Are you sure it was Paris?" "My dear fellow," said Carrisford, "I am sure of nothing. I never saw either the child or her mother. Ralph Crewe and I loved each other as boys, but we had not met since our school days until we met in India, and then we spoke only of the mines. The whole thing was so huge and glittering that we half lost our heads. I know that her mother was a Frenchwoman, and I had heard that she wished her child to be educated in Paris. I must find her. If she is alive, she is somewhere. If she is friendless and penniless, it is my fault. Poor Crewe's child may be begging in the street." "No, no," said Carmichael. "Try to be calm. Think that when she is found she will have a fortune. Poor Crewe had put into the scheme every penny that he owned. He trusted me, he loved me, and he died thinking I had ruined him," exclaimed Carrisford. "Don't reproach yourself." "I reproach myself for losing my courage. I ran away like a swindler and a thief because I could not face my best friend and tell him I had ruined him and his child." The good-hearted father of the large family put his hand on his shoulder. "You ran away because you had a brain fever," he said. "You were in a hospital 2 days after you left the place. Remember that." Carrisford dropped his forehead in his hands. "Come, come," said Carmichael. "We shall find her yet. We will continue to search for Madame Pascal's good-natured Russians. I will go to Moscow."